I had always believed that my life was destined to be ordinary. The village of Arendor lay cradled between jagged cliffs and dense pine forests, a place where time seemed to linger, reluctant to rush forward. My days were a rhythm of routine, the cold bite of dawn as I drew water from the well, the weight of firewood on my shoulders, and the quiet murmurs of my mother's voice, telling stories of heroes who had vanished long before my birth. I loved the simplicity. Yet even then I felt a gnawing emptiness, a yearning for something I could not name. It was on a night, scented with pine and mist, that everything changed. I was returning from the far edge of the forest, the moonlight casting jagged shadows on the ground, when I heard it, a whisper carried by the wind. At first I thought it was my imagination, the echo of too many stories filling my head, but it was my name, spoken with a gentleness that made my chest tighten. Arian. The sound of it made my blood drum in my ears. I froze, my hands clutching the straps of my satchel, and listened. The wind seemed to curl around me, urging me forward. Against every instinct, I followed it, stepping into the forest where no villager dared tread. The trees loomed like silent sentinels, their branches weaving a lattice against the sky, and the shadows beneath them shifted, as if alive. Every step felt heavy, each footfall echoing in the hush of night. And then I saw her. Aeliana. She stood atop a rock in a clearing bathed in moonlight, her silver hair cascading like liquid stars, her eyes reflecting the storm-racked sky. I could barely breathe. It was as if the world had tilted, and everything I had known became pale and distant. She looked at me with a curiosity that pierced through the walls I had built around my heart. "Who are you?" I managed, my voice breaking the hush like a fragile blade. "I have been waiting," she said, her voice a melody that seemed older than the wind itself. "For you." Her words made no sense, yet they resonated in a way that defied logic. I wanted to ask more, to step closer, but some part of me, some instinct I could not name, held me back. I had read of fates and prophecies, of curses and lost kingdoms, but I had never imagined that one would find me here in my mundane life. Days after that night were a blur. I could not sleep. Every moment was haunted by the memory of her silver hair, the storm in her eyes, and the faint echo of her voice calling me. When I returned to the clearing, she was gone, leaving only the whisper of wind and the faint shimmer of her presence. It was then that the first trial arrived, not in the form of a beast or a storm, but as a choice. The village elders warned of the forest, of the dangers that lay beyond, yet I felt a pull I could not resist. I had two options: remain in the safe predictability of my life, or step into the unknown, toward a destiny that trembled just out of reach. I chose the unknown. The forest seemed to shift as I walked, paths bending, shadows twisting, as though it were alive and aware of my presence. I stumbled through thickets, my fingers brushing against leaves that were colder than ice, yet a strange warmth spread through me. It was as if the forest itself acknowledged my courage, or perhaps it was testing it. And then I heard it again, her voice, closer this time. "Arion." I ran, heart hammering, until I found myself at the edge of a cliff. Below, the river glinted like silver in the moonlight, and above, the stars shone with a brilliance that seemed almost impossible. She was there, waiting, eyes luminous, hands outstretched, as if to invite me into a world I had only glimpsed in dreams. "You are here," she said, and a smile touched her lips, soft and knowing.
I don't understand, I stammered, though every fiber of me knew that this moment would change everything. Understanding is not required, she whispered, stepping closer. Only courage. That night, standing on the cliff with the wind whipping around us, I felt the first spark of something I had never known. Hope, fear, and an undeniable pull of the heart that could not be ignored. I did not yet know what trials awaited me, nor the shadows that would chase me, nor the curses that bound her. But I knew with a certainty that shook me to my core that I could not turn back. And so my journey began, not just through forests or over cliffs, but into the depths of my own heart, where desire, fear, and destiny intertwined, and where the first whispers of love began to take root.
The morning after I first met Eliana, I awoke to a sky bruised with the soft lavender of dawn. The forest felt different now, less like a place to fear, more like a world alive and breathing around me. Yet I was not naive. I had glimpsed the edge of something vast and dangerous, something that had touched her, and now, by extension, would touch me. Eliana appeared at the clearing again, as if she had been waiting all night. Her eyes held an intensity I could not ignore, the kind that could both burn and comfort at once. "Today," she said softly, "we begin your first trial." I swallowed hard. I had expected danger, yes, but a trial? I had no idea what that meant. She led me deeper into the forest, to a place where the trees grew twisted and black, their bark etched with runes that pulsed faintly in the dim light. Shadows clung to everything, and the air smelled of iron and smoke. My chest tightened, but when I glanced at her, her steady gaze anchored me. "The flame serpents," she said, almost casually, as though naming them made them less terrifying. "You must pass them, or return home." I wanted to ask how, but the rustling behind us answered the question. From the underbrush, snakes of living fire emerged, their scales flickering like embers, their eyes glinting with hunger. Every instinct screamed to run, yet my legs held fast. "Trust yourself, and trust me." I felt a warmth at her words, as if she had reached into my chest and set my courage alight. I stepped forward, careful not to panic, and moved as I had never moved before, aware of the serpent's gaze, aware of every shadow and flicker of flame. Somehow the fear sharpened me. I dodged, ducked, and leapt, until the last serpent hissed and dissolved into sparks that danced harmlessly at my feet. I turned to her, heart pounding like a drum. She was smiling, not broadly, but in a way that made my knees weak. She said, "You are braver than you know," and for the first time I wanted to mean it. But trials do not come singly. No sooner had we passed the serpents than the sky darkened unnaturally. The wind whipped violently, carrying whispers that promised despair. Eliana grabbed my hand, her fingers warm and firm. She said, "The cavern of shadows, it tests more than your strength, it tests your heart." Inside, darkness swallowed everything. Shapes moved just beyond the edge of vision. I felt my pulse spike with every step. And then I heard voices, my mother, my father, the people I had left behind, pleading, crying, warning me to turn back. I staggered, nearly collapsing under the weight of their illusions. Eliana's hand found mine again. She said, "Do not let the shadows trick you. We face them together." Her presence steadied me. Step by step, we navigated the cavern, facing visions designed to break me, until the darkness finally receded. I emerged, trembling but alive, and she smiled again. "You are learning," she said, her voice soft like a caress.
It was during these trials that I began to see her differently. She was not just a guide or a mysterious stranger. She was fierce, vulnerable, unyielding, and astonishingly human in the moments when her guard slipped. Watching her, sharing these moments of terror and triumph, I felt a pull in my chest that was no longer simple admiration. It was something far more potent, far more dangerous. Love, fragile but undeniable. One evening, as we camped beside a river that glittered like liquid stars, I dared to voice it. "Eliana, I—" She turned to me, eyes reflecting the moonlight, a gentle questioning in her gaze. I faltered, unsure how to continue, the words seeming too small for the storm inside me. "I know," she said, softly, as if reading my thoughts, "and yet we must focus. The Eclipse King watches, and every heartbeat is a risk." Her words chilled me, reminding me that this world was not ours to claim yet. Danger lurked always, and love could be a weapon against us as easily as a shield. Still, as we drifted to sleep that night, our shoulders brushing beneath the star-swept sky, I felt something I had never felt before. Hope, that even in a world full of trials, I could find someone to stand beside me, someone whose heart beat in rhythm with mine. And though the road ahead promised fire, darkness, and betrayal, I no longer feared it as I once had. For every trial we faced, every danger we endured, brought me closer to her, and closer to a destiny that was beginning to feel not like a burden, but a promise.
The Eclipse King came not with a roar, but with a whisper that slithered into my mind like poison. At first, I didn't even realize it was him, only that the shadows around me seemed thicker, darker, as if the very air had been drained of warmth. We had traveled for days through the Valley of Wraiths, a place where the mist swallowed light and hope alike. Every step had been an effort, each breath drawn with the weight of unseen eyes upon us. Aliana stayed close, her hand brushing mine at every uncertain moment, a silent tether to the world I still clung to. And then the whispers began. First, soft, almost intimate, then louder, sharper. Voices of people I had loved, voices of those I feared I had failed, voices that accused me of cowardice, of betrayal, of being unworthy of her. I staggered, clutching my head as the walls of the cavern seemed to close in. Arian, Aliana's voice pierced the haze, gentle but insistent. "Focus! Breathe! Remember who you are." I tried, but it was like swimming against a current of ice. The Eclipse King knew my fears, my doubts, my weaknesses, and he wielded them with precision, tearing at my resolve, unraveling the threads of courage I had stitched together so painfully. Then came the betrayal. One of our companions, a mage named Thalen, who had joined us days before, revealed himself as a servant of the Eclipse King. His laughter echoed in the hollow cliffs, and before I could react, he struck at Aliana with a dark spell that sent her tumbling into a chasm. "No!" I screamed, running to the edge, my heart hammering violently. My hand reached for her, but she was gone from sight, swallowed by shadows that seemed to mock me. I fell to my knees, the world narrowing to a single point of despair. For the first time, I doubted myself completely. Every choice, every step forward felt meaningless. I had failed her. I had failed us.
Hours, maybe days, I could not tell, passed in that broken limbo. The mist around me thickened, and I whispered her name until my throat ached. I imagined her alone, frightened, and I felt my soul fracture under the weight of helplessness. And then, unexpectedly, a warmth touched my hand. I looked up to see her, climbing from the shadows with a grace that defied reason, eyes burning with defiance and pain. "You cannot give up," she said, her voice steady despite her bruises. "Not now, not ever." I wanted to argue, to tell her I had nothing left, but her gaze held me captive. There was no room for despair in the presence of her courage. In that moment, I understood something I had never truly realized. Trials were not meant to break us. They were meant to reveal who we could become. Together, we faced the Eclipse King. Though not in battle, no weapons could pierce him. Only the strength of our hearts entwined could stand against his darkness. He tested me relentlessly, showing visions of a future without her, where I had failed in every imaginable way. And yet, as I clutched her hand and felt her heart beat against mine, I found a spark within myself that refused to die. The fear, the doubt, the shadows, they were all real, but love was stronger. The bond we shared became a shield, a light that pierced the haze and burned away the illusions the Eclipse King conjured. That night, we camped beneath a sky that was bruised and black, the air heavy with the residue of his presence. I lay awake, listening to the slow rhythm of her breathing, thinking of how fragile yet resilient we were. I realized that the trials had not only tested our courage, they had forced me to confront the depths of my heart. And there, in the darkness, I whispered a vow. Whatever came next, I would face it with her by my side. Even if the world tried to tear us apart, even if the shadows sought to swallow every spark of hope, I would not let her go.
The sky had bled into shades of black and crimson by the time we reached the Eclipse King's fortress, a jagged spire of stone that pierced the clouds like a blade. Every step toward it felt like walking on the edge of a knife. One wrong move, and everything could end. Oleana walked beside me, her hand never leaving mine, her silver hair a radiant contrast to the darkness surrounding us. "I can feel him," she whispered, her voice tense but steady. "He knows we are here." I swallowed hard, feeling the weight of all the trials we had endured pressing against my chest. Every scar, every fear, every step of courage had led us here. And yet, nothing could have prepared me for what awaited. The gates of the fortress opened without sound, welcoming us into a vast hall where shadows writhed like living things. At the center stood the Eclipse King, tall and impossibly dark, his eyes glinting with malice and centuries of hunger. He did not move to attack. Instead, he spoke, his voice a silky blade that cut through the air. "You have come far, Arian," he said, and I felt the words settle in my bones. "But bravery alone will not save you. To free her, you must give everything, even your heart." Aliana squeezed my hand, and I felt a courage surge from her warmth. "We face it together," she said. And for the first time,
I believed it. The trial began not with fire or steel, but with visions. The Eclipse King projected a world where I had failed her at every turn, where I abandoned her, where she suffered alone, where the shadows consumed everything. Each vision was more vivid than the last, more real, more painful. I staggered, heart screaming against the illusion, wanting to flee, wanting to scream. But Oleana's hand found mine again. "Look at me," she commanded softly. Her eyes were steady, unyielding. "We are stronger than this, together." I forced myself to breathe, to focus, to anchor myself in reality. The visions began to falter like mist burned by sunlight. I realized then that this trial was not about survival. It was about choice. The Eclipse King demanded I sacrifice everything, my life, my soul, my very essence. He wanted me to break, to abandon her. "I will not," I shouted, my voice echoing through the hall. "I choose her. I choose us." The shadows recoiled, hissing like flames extinguished by a sudden gust of wind. Oleana stepped closer, her presence amplifying my resolve. Together we advanced, hearts entwined, hands clasped. The Eclipse King's form twisted, his power striking like lightning, but each strike we met with the force of our bond. Love became a weapon, sharper than any blade, brighter than any light. The hall trembled, darkness colliding with the fire of our courage, until the first rays of dawn crept through the fortress windows. The Eclipse King shrieked, a sound that shook the stones, before dissolving into shadows that fled before the rising sun. I sank to my knees, trembling, and Oleana knelt beside me, wrapping me in an embrace that made the world feel whole again. "You did it," she whispered. "We did it." I laughed, a sound mingled with relief and disbelief. "We really did. Together." And as we stood at the edge of the fortress, watching the first light of morning burn away the remnants of darkness, I realized that the trials had not only tested our strength, they had forged our hearts into something unbreakable. Whatever challenges lay ahead, I knew we could face them because we had discovered the ultimate truth. Love was not weakness. Love was courage. And together, we were unstoppable. The first light of morning spilled over the cliffs, gilding the world in gold and amber. For the first time in what felt like an eternity, the wind carried no whispers of danger, no shadows seeking to undo us. It only carried the soft hum of life, of rivers flowing, birds stirring, and leaves dancing in the sun. Aliana and I stood together on the edge of the cliffs where we had first met, the place where this entire journey had begun. Her hand fit perfectly in mine, her fingers curling around mine with a gentle, unspoken promise. The weight of fear, of trials, of darkness had lifted. The horizon stretched endlessly before us, a vast canvas for a world we could now share. "I can't believe it's finally over," I whispered, feeling the truth of it settle deep in my chest. Aliana turned to me, her silver hair catching the sunlight, eyes reflecting a joy I had never dared imagine. "It's never truly over," she said softly, "but we've survived what was meant to break us. That counts for everything." I laughed, a low, unsteady sound that carried relief and disbelief. "We survived. Together." Her gaze softened, and in that moment I realized just how much she had changed me. She had made me braver, stronger,
and more alive than I had ever been. And I, though I had feared failure, though I doubted myself, had given her my heart fully, without reservation, and she had accepted it, equally whole. We walked along the cliffs in silence, letting the breeze and sunlight wrap around us. Each step was a celebration, a reclamation of life after the darkness we had endured. There were scars, yes, both physical and unseen, but they were reminders of the journey we had survived, of the battles that had forged us into who we were meant to be. At the edge of the cliffs, where the river below glittered like liquid crystal, Aliana paused. She turned to me, eyes searching, and said, "Irian, wherever this path takes us next, I want to face it with you. No shadows, no trials, nothing, just us." I felt a warmth spread through me, deeper than the sun on my skin, steadier than the earth beneath our feet. "I will never keep you from you," I said. "We have faced the worst, and we're still here, together, always." She smiled, the kind of smile that can heal wounds invisible to the world, and I felt a flutter of emotion I could not contain. Without thinking, I leaned close, brushing my forehead against hers. The world seemed to hold its breath, the river sparkling below us, the wind wrapping us in a quiet embrace. "I love you," I whispered, and her hand tightened around mine. "I love you," she echoed, her voice steady, unwavering. The cliffs, the river, the sky itself seemed to celebrate with us. It was the kind of moment that defied time, a pause between heartbeats that would linger forever in memory. We had endured trials meant to crush us, faced a darkness that threatened everything, and yet we had emerged not only victorious, but stronger, bound by something unbreakable. The wind carried our laughter as we walked back toward the village, toward the life we had fought to reclaim. The journey ahead would have its challenges, yes, but we would meet them side by side. We had learned that love was not fragile. It was fire, courage, and light. And now, at last, we could live in its warmth. For the first time, the world felt infinite, safe, and ours. Together, we were home.